Out of executive order, well, not to hear the President of the United States tell it. He is expected to do a lot of crowing about his executive action on illegal immigration, effectively delaying those millions of deportations. But Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton says on this matter, the Prez might want to shut up because a court's going to strike him down. The Attorney General is here now to explain. General, you've got, my gosh, it seems like half the states in the country signing on to this
25.
lawsuit. 25, right? Okay, so what is the gist of that? That what the president is doing is overreach, right?
Yeah, well, we're saying that it's a violation of the federal Constitution and also a violation of statutory law, and then he has no authority to do what he's doing.
All right, but he obviously says he does have authority to do what he's doing. So if a court were not to agree with you and more or less say he can keep doing what he's doing and settle this in the legislative arena, what does that mean?
Well, let me tell you what his argument is. He's arguing that he has prosecutorial discretion to allocate resources however he wants to. In this case, he's not allocating resources. He's actually ignoring a rule or a law. So he's not going on a case-by-case basis.
Oh, no, I know what you're saying, Attorney General. Here's what I worry about, that he's going to run out the clock on this. That let's say he loses this, he's going to appeal this. And while that's running out, these deportations and their delays stay. And more are told you don't have to worry about being shipped back anywhere. And that's what's going to be his friend. And he knows it. What do you think?
Well, all we can do is file our case. Our motion was for a preliminary injunction to stop the implementation. So it'll be up to the courts to tell us whether we're going to get that preliminary injunction.
Now, with the preliminary injunction, I'm showing my legal stupidity here, but would that stop the president from going his merry way? Because he would likely try to do everything he can to appeal that, or would that injunction hold and that this would have to stop?
Well, if the court grants our motion and they grant the preliminary injunction, he'll have to stop. We were told that he was going to start implementing sometime in March. So we asked the court for the preliminary injunction prior to that date.
Do you think, I know you're a lawyer by training here and a darn good one, but do you think this is more about politics, General, than it is about the law? That, in other words, he thinks this is the Democratic Party's best asset, wooing these potential voters, and it's simple as that?
I really don't know what he's thinking. All I can tell you is for the last 6 years, starting back when he was running for office, even up to the summer of 2014, he was telling people that he couldn't do this, that he didn't have the legal authority to do this.
Right.
So I don't know what his motivation is, but it's interesting. This is an about-face on what he told us for the last 6 years.
Yeah, well, there is precedent to that. All right, thank you, Attorney General. Very good seeing you.
Thank you.
Well, the Texas Attorney General might not want to hear the president talk about executive action on illegal immigration tomorrow, but most Americans overwhelmingly want to hear the president talk about something else, the war on terror. 76% of Americans say that it is by far their #1 priority right now. And they are hoping the president puts it front and center tomorrow night. But Bush 43 Undersecretary of Defense Doug Feith says they might not want to hold their breath. So, Doug, you think the president will just gloss over this or even address this? What do you think?
Well, Neil, I think that a large part of the reason the American public is agitated is because of the recent murders in Paris, which got the attention of a lot of people in the world and educated a lot of people about the dangers of Islamist extremism. One of the basic problems with the president's approach to the problem is he continues to refuse to acknowledge that this is in essence an ideological problem. And you saw that when Josh Earnest was basically turning himself into a pretzel to avoid using the term Islamist extremism. Even though David Cameron did not, I'm wondering whether there is a sense here of inconsistency among Western leaders. What do you think? Well, what we've seen in recent days is that you have very strong statements by the French Prime Minister and by the British Prime Minister that the problem is essentially ideological in nature, and we need to, if we're going to have a serious strategy against terrorism, there has to be an ideological component. We also have seen the president of Egypt make an extraordinary statement that called on Muslims around the world to recognize that that Islamism, which is a a totalitarian political ideology that is not the same as Islam needs to be fought by Muslims, and that it's ruining the standing of Islam in the eyes of the world.
As wacky as this sounds, Doug, I mean, if it's one thing that the president of Egypt just said, which is amazing. We're not going to hear anything approaching that from the president. I don't know. We haven't heard it, and I doubt we're going to hear it tomorrow night.
No, I agree, and it's really impossible for the U.S. government to organize a serious, comprehensive strategy to deal with the terrorism problem if you have the president denying the ideological essence of the problem.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right, and you said that very well. Doug, thank you very, very much. Doug Feith, hope springs eternal. Maybe we'll hear that out of the president, but I don't know. Well, here's why I think that Andrew Cuomo's looking at a bigger job. He just won up the president on ordering higher pay for those in the lowest jobs.